The Santa Barbara City Council recently declared a Stage 2 water shortage alert. This is in response to Governor Gavin Newsom's recently issued executive orders declaring a statewide drought emergency and request for California residents to voluntarily reduce their water use by 15%. Currently, over 95% of California is experiencing severe or extreme drought conditions.
The water supply situation statewide is really bad. The city's investment has made a huge difference, and so we are not in that same boat. I want to respect that the rest of the state is struggling with that, but the commitment that we've made not only to conservation but to diversifying our supply mix have really put us in a different situation. And so your messaging you're hearing from us is continue to do what you're doing now. We'll continue to keep an eye on our water supply situation, but we are in a good situation right now. We're in a good spot.
So the steps that we're taking to support the state are to implement what we're calling common sense water use regulations. So these water use regulations include using a shut-off nozzle when you're using a hose. So if you drop it, the flow of water stops. Also not watering in the middle of the day. That's when evaporation is highest, and we want to really reduce that amount of water waste. So the watering times are after 6 p.m. or before 8 a.m. And then also not hosing down hard surfaces such as sidewalks or driveways. We really encourage a broom in those contexts. If it's something that's needed for preventative maintenance or painting or for health and safety, then there are exceptions for pressure washing or maybe using a mop and a broom instead. So the state also implemented a statewide ban on watering non-functional turf grass at commercial, institutional, and industrial sites. And what they're defining as non-functional is basically it's not a recreated space, it's an ornamental space. And we like to think of it as if the only person walking across it is the one mowing it, it's not really used as a recreated or event space, and that's a better alternative, such as low water use plants could be placed there. So here in the city, we really have embraced water-wise landscaping and native landscaping. And that's something that we've really encouraged both in the residential sector and the commercial sector. So especially if there's an area that's not used as recreation, that's non-functional, there can be beautiful alternatives that offer diversity, color, native pollinator habitat. That's really what we're looking for. If people are still looking for perhaps that flat green surface, like maybe it's a parkway and someone wants to walk across it, there's other alternatives that are ground covers, that are green ground covers that use a fraction of the amount of water, and they're not a turf grass, they're not a lawn, and it's also something you might not have to mow. So there's cotoneaster, there's carapia, there's myoporum, there's all kinds of green ground covers that we've seen used widely that people are really happy with as a lawn alternative for something that's really just a flat, decorative green look.
With the conservation practices already adopted by residents and businesses, and the city's investment in a diversified water supply, including the activation of the city's desalination plant, Santa Barbara's water supply outlook is good, even if extremely dry conditions persist.
The city is actually in quite a secure water supply situation. We have a very diverse water supply portfolio, meaning that we get our water from many different sources, and we've worked hard to diversify that portfolio over the last 20 years. And because of that diversity, what it means is when one supply is short for any reason, we have other supplies to call upon.
While Santa Barbara has experienced below average rainfall, the city's water demands can be met for at least the next 2 years, even if there is no rainfall during that time. However, in recognition of the severe drought conditions statewide, and in response to Governor Newsom's declaration, Santa Barbara is taking the next step to encourage conservation.
Probably all of us know as California residents, drought is always kind of just around the corner in California. And specifically here in Santa Barbara, we have a pretty unique geography. We've got the mountains just behind us, and then we've got the ocean like pretty close on the next side. And what it does is it almost puts us in this little island on the south coast. that really kind of isolates us in terms of where we can get our supplies from. So for example, our supplies that come down from Lake Cachuma come through the Santa Ynez Mountains. And so if we were to have, a catastrophic event like an earthquake, we could potentially be cut off from that supply source. And so we've been motivated for a long time, understanding that water supply in California is flashy. It's either wet or it's dry. Drought is often around the corner. That the best way for us to have a secure water supply for our community is to diversify. And so we've added supplies like desalination, which are truly local and drought proof, which gives us a lot more security and reliability. The drought situation in the state of California is legitimate and severe. There's been record low rainfall, stream flow is very low, reservoirs storage is low. If you look across the state, conditions are very dry. And that is true even in Santa Barbara. We had 63% of average rainfall this year, so we also experienced a very dry winter.
Santa Barbara's diverse water supply can meet demands using a combination of supplies including Lake Cachuma, Gibraltar Reservoir, ocean desalination, groundwater, imported water through the State Water Project, and recycled water.
What it doesn't include when you're looking at drought conditions is water supply availability. And so in any given water supplier's area, you have to take the water supply availability and lay it on top of those drought conditions. And so where we stand in Santa Barbara right now is we want to recognize that our water supply situation is secure, and because of the hard work of our community in continuing to conserve and also to invest in abilities to diversify our portfolio through drought-proof supplies.
Obviously our desalination plant are operating. We have a recycle water system that's operating, and it makes a huge difference. I mean, desal is providing about 30% of our water, and recycled is another 10%. So almost 40% of our supply is not dependent on rainfall now, which is huge. And it has provided, I think, the safety net that this community needs based on where we live here in California.
Santa Barbara residents are currently using the same amount of water used in the 1950s, but with nearly double the population, highlighting the impact of water efficiency and increasingly more efficient building codes. The community's water use currently averages 25% less than pre-drought water use in 2013.
So here in Santa Barbara, we've really embraced water conservation as a way of life here. And residents, businesses, all of our community members are really used to, unfortunately, these drought conditions that we go through from time and again. And what we've really seen here is a really dramatic reduction in water use. And that's because we've embraced water efficiency, we have stricter plumbing standards and landscape standards. And so even as our community grows and develops, we're using less and less water, which is really unique to Santa Barbara and to some other coastal communities. So as we look ahead to future droughts, at times it can get harder and harder to conserve, because what we are hearing from folks is we've already gotten there, we've already done enough. And sort of the last low-hanging fruit is the landscape and is the irrigation. We do still see a lot of broken irrigation systems, a lot of waste, a lot of water going onto sidewalks. And that's where we really hope people to focus their attention, is sort of this discretionary water use and this waste, and focus more on preserving trees, preserving established landscapes, and focusing on how they're watering them to make sure it's as efficient as possible.
But then also recognize that conditions are severe in the state, and that we all need to do our part to use our water as efficiently as possible throughout the state.
And the community has really stepped up in the form of conservation. We needed the community to conserve in 2013, 2014, 2015, and they stepped up, and they've continued to do it. They've made conservation a way of life.